Zelda 2 is not a bad game. In fact, I would say it is one of the best Zelda games in the franchise and mainly hated on because it's different and simply popular to hate it. Oftentimes, people who hate this game proceed to praise games like Hollow Knight or Dark Souls for the very same mechanics that they hated in Zelda 2. Ugh, Zelda 2 is too cryptic. How could anyone ever figure this out? Oh wow, it's so cool they didn't even tell me that this useless motion in front of this random statue to transport me to an unknown area. So innovative. But being cryptic is not the only criticism of this game. The internet just simply loves to hate Zelda 2. So today, let's dig into these criticisms and try to explain why Zelda 2 is actually a fantastic game. Let's go ahead and start with the cryptic part. Many players say it's so cryptic that it's impossible to figure out. Is the game cryptic? Yes, it is cryptic. But that's not always necessarily a bad thing. Let's take for example the hidden town of New Kasuto. It is literally hidden behind a patch of forest in the game and requires you to chop down the trees with a hammer to find it. It seems like no one could have ever just found that town on their own, so we all complain. But how many people actually paid attention to the game before that spot? There were clues for this that no one ever talks about. For this area, you could have talked to a man who said to look in the forest to the east, the very forest of New Kasuto. Then if you looked in the manual, you would have found out that the hammer could have been used to chop down trees. Put these two together and bam, you would have found the hidden town of New Kasuto. I'll admit it is cryptic because it doesn't just right out tell you where the town is at, but to say that it's so cryptic that it's impossible to figure it out, that's just a false claim. Also, this forest is one of the best places to grind for experience, so the developers were trying to get you to go that forest anyway to find the hidden town naturally. But finding secrets and hidden objects based upon clues used to be a small joy in games. When you discovered something like this, you felt a sense of excitement and that you found something that most people weren't able to. It was a thrill. We are so used to online guides and videos to tell us where everything is at exactly that the joy of finding a secret is nearly lost in games today. So while I don't see the vague cryptic aspects of the game being such a problem, let's discuss the hypocrisy of gamers for hating the game for it. First off, Zelda 1 was significantly worse about it. Random walls to blow up, random bushes to set fire to, random grumble grumble meaning give this guy some food. All these things and more are in the game, and instead of having a few clues like Zelda 2, the player literally gets no clues at all to figure them out. You'd have to literally set fire to every bush in the game just to find the entrance to this dungeon. However, people still praise the game and dismiss the crypticness of it as a sign of the times. Zelda 2, though, does not get the same pass for some weird reason. Even newer games have cryptic elements in them. From Software games are notorious for being cryptic with false walls, entire hidden worlds, hidden items, and more. Yet this is continually a praised feature of the games because it forces exploration. Basically meaning people looked it up on the internet. What it all boils down to though is either crypticness is a problem or crypticness isn't a problem. You can't just flip-flop back and forth your opinion depending on the game. If it is a problem, then go ahead and add all these other games to your list of games that you hate. The second complaint that often arises with Zelda 2 is the intense difficulty. Yes, this game is hard, but that is what makes the game so rewarding. It is not just an overload of enemies on the screen like many NES games, which just artificially makes the game hard. The difficulty of Zelda 2 hinges upon learning the fighting mechanics, and to get good at the game, you actually have to learn how to battle. If you just rush into fights and dungeons hacking away, you are sure to die quickly. Take these knights scattered throughout the game for example. You actually have to learn how to react accordingly to shield attacks and when you have an opening to slash. If you just go in slashing, you will die. Does this make the game hard? Absolutely. But it is a rewarding combat system that few games had at the time, and even fewer games now employ today. When Dark Souls implemented a similar timed combat into games a decade ago, they were praised by gamers and reviewers everywhere for their innovation because players had to actually think about their attacks in order to succeed. So despite being hard, Dark Souls made players feel like they had actually earned their victories. It was rewarding. Sound familiar? But even once learning to combat in the Souls games, the games themselves were praised endlessly for being so difficult. Also, games like Cuphead, they want acclaim everywhere for its difficulty. I feel the difficulty in Zelda 2, it is truly based upon learning to combat, which is a good thing, but regardless, other intensely hard games get a pass when this one doesn't. So once again, is difficulty something that ruins a game? Or is it something that makes a game great? It can't be what ruins Zelda 2 and at the same time makes Cuphead your game of the year. The next complaint is that the game is too linear compared to the first Zelda and the third one. While the first one is definitely less linear, I feel like this one is on par with, if not less linear, than A Link to the Past. There are so many caves and areas to explore within the game right from the start. Areas open up when you find new items, but if you brave the areas without the items, you can often pass through anyway, allowing you to forge somewhat of your own path in the game. The game is hugely focused on exploration and therefore very akin to other Zelda games. I think many players discount the exploration because it takes place in 2D instead of 3D, and the exploration requires more skill to explore the areas due to the difficulty in learning how to fight. This leads many players to dying and giving up, which of course ends the exploration for them. That doesn't mean exploration wasn't there, it just means that you chose not to pursue it. Also, the type of game that is projected in Zelda 2 is not that different than current Metroidvanias when it comes to linearity. They allow you to explore 2D worlds and you'll notice areas that you need certain items for to come back to later. Plenty to explore, but ultimately a set path is laid out until you get the items that you need. Hollow Knight is a prime example of this. So much to explore, yet boundaries are set in place until certain items are obtained. While this game is significantly larger than Zelda 2, the premise is the same. Linear, but lots of freedom of exploration that expands as you collect different items. Metroidvanias are praised endlessly though for this format of giving the player freedom of exploration. However, when Zelda 2 did it, garbage. I hope you're starting to see a little bit of the double standard here. Another criticism is that this game is not like other Zeldas. Well, when the game came out, there was only one other Zelda, so there was no formula. But even then, there are so many similarities between the two. An overworld to explore? Check. Dungeons or palaces to conquer? Check. Unique items and weapons to discover? Check. Finding heart pieces or health upgrades? Check. The story, the setting, and the atmosphere of the game? Check. All the core elements of the Zelda games are there, but just as you do most of the activities in 2D. Why is this even considered an issue? We love 2D games, so why do we hate a 2D game just because the other one in the series are all overhead? It doesn't make sense to dislike a game based upon it just being different than the rest of the series. Evaluate the game based upon its own merits and how well it performs in that category. And as a 2D platformer, this game is amazing. I honestly feel that somewhere along the way a small group began saying how awful this game was and it became the cool thing to hate. That led to many players jumping on the bandwagon and never ever really giving this game a full chance. I think if players just simply tried the game, they would discover so many things to love, even outside of the defended claims we just talked about. Take for example the amazing soundtrack. To this day, this is still my favorite Zelda soundtrack. The opening song? Amazing. Palace themes? Amazing. So much of the soundtrack is just simply wonderful. Next is the enriching story. While most of this is hidden within the manual, the story is leagues ahead of Zelda 1 and honestly one of the best in the series. Once you know the story, it brings the towns, the enemies, and characters all to life that much more. The variety of enemies in this game are also fantastic. When players give up so quickly, They miss out on so many epic boss fights. The Karak, the Barba, the Thunderbird, even Shadow Link, and so many more. But the thing I think most players miss out from dismissing this game so quickly is the rewarding experience of finishing a game that truly took some effort. It is rewarding and you feel like you've earned that victory and you've developed a skill within the game. It's a great feeling and not many games nowadays give you that same high. Overall, Zelda 2 is a great game, and if you've dismissed it over the last several years, there's no better time to give it a try than now. It is part of the Nintendo Switch Online and is included on the NES Classic as well. Load it up, play through with an open mind, and I think you'll have the time of your life. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you've played through Zelda 2, feel free to give your comments about the game below as well. As always though, go out there, find a great game to play, and just simply have a great rest of the day.